No problem at all. Happy to chat. What's first?
Master Milroy, since you work closely with martial arts school owners all over the world, from your vantage point, what are the biggest business challenges school owners are facing right now?
Biggest challenges. Well, I think probably I'd probably divide them into two sort of categories, right? I think you've got sort of the old challenges, and then you have the new challenges, right? So, clearly today we want to talk a fair bit, I think, about AI and its impact in the industry and in the market in general, right? But in the sort of old challenges category, for the most part, we have a lot of these problems already solved. If you're a school operator and you're still struggling to sort of like acquire enough new students, that's kind of like one of the big challenges that schools face. And we just have all sorts of ways to solve that problem now, right? I mean, if you're still struggling to enroll 20, 25, 30 new students a month in a traditional school, then man, we really need to talk, because there are so many systems and mechanisms that we can help deploy in your school that just solve the problem, I can't even tell you exactly the last time I was really panicked about doing enough enrollments for a month. If you have enough of these mechanisms operating, it's not much of a challenge. So I would say enrolling enough new students is clearly a challenge for some schools, although it shouldn't be. Developing enough staff, right, to be able to operate their schools long term and have longevity with that seems to be a challenge and for a lot of schools. And in that case as well, there are a lot of tools and a lot of resources and a lot of strategies that we can help deploy to help solve that. And also, I think like next level wealth generation is a challenge for a lot of schools as well. Like once you get one school up and operating well and it's generating a decent cash flow, do you stop there, right? Or is it something that you transition into real substantial, long-lasting wealth? So I think those are three challenges that schools, still face in the sort of old, challenge category. In the new challenge category, a lot of the things that we're seeing in the world of technology and artificial intelligence and things like that are really fundamentally disrupting everything, and certainly fundamentally disrupting martial arts schools. And I think those are a clear set of challenges. I see two challenges in that arena, two near-term challenges in that arena. One is deploying AI tools and strategies and tactics in your school intelligently, or just sort of chasing the next bright, shiny object, right? Because there are an awful lot of things that are happening right now in the AI space and in the automation space and things like this that are really, really bad strategic ideas, right? Strategically poor ideas, but they sound good, right? Because they're cheap, they might be able to save me some money, things like this. But if you look at the strategy behind it, it's really, or the psychological impact to a customer or to a caller or to a person on the mat or whatever the case is, the ramifications are bad, right? So I think in the new challenge category, in the new technology and AI challenge category, I think there are tools and strategies that are really, really useful and really, really powerful. And there are also some tools and strategies out there that are just really bad ideas from a strategic standpoint. So I think those are some challenges that we face in the industry, and I'm happy to talk more about the AI challenges and the technology challenges as we go, through our time today.
AI has become a significant force across nearly every industry. Why do you believe that it's especially relevant for martial arts school owners at this moment?
Why is it especially relevant right now? Well, I think that AI, clearly AI is going to be a disruption in virtually every sector of the economy in the world, right? From, restaurants to service industries to transportation to military to research. I think pretty much every industry in the world is going to be fundamentally disrupted by AI. The timeline is just different with different industries, right? And I think the challenges that industries face are going to be slightly different, right? But in general terms, AI is going to disrupt everything, right? I keep going back to this concept just for my own mental satisfaction, I guess. But one of the thought experiments that I like to do is if you just look around the room that you're in right now, whatever room you're in, if you look around the room, every single thing, every chair in this conference room, the easel board, the desks, the clock, everything in this room, every single thing in this building, in this room, got here on a truck, right? Everything is transported the last mile by a truck or a delivery vehicle of some type, and probably transported from a train station to the depot by truck, and et cetera. What happens in the economy when we don't need all those truck drivers, right? What happens when self-driving, like Tesla self-drive or Waymo or whatever? What happens when you don't need any of those drivers? Uber, taxi drivers, delivery drivers, all of these types of things, truck drivers. All of this just goes basically to zero, so to speak, so far as the human is involved, right? And then when you look at technology, like we're deeply invested in technology in Martial Arts World News Magazine, our digital properties and things like that. We're deeply invested in technology in Atlas Martial Arts Software. It's a software company, a technology company. Amazing Martial Arts websites, Atlas Marketing Studio. All of these solutions for school operators, many of them are technology backed. And the level of disruption that we're seeing in that sector is just enormous. Our engineers right now are probably 5x more productive today than they were, a year ago, right? And every new model that comes out, every new AI tool that comes out, we're right on the cutting edge of that stuff. I mean, we're testing them and implementing them and running through scenarios, and we're seeing enormous gains in that area. So anything related to technology will be hugely disrupted for sure. And then also, I think when you couple AI with robotics, with human scale, human type robotics, I think you'll see the same type of disruption in manufacturing and in physical, things that require a physical human to do them. Even medicine, radiology, imaging, things like this. The level of integration of AI right now is incredible, and I think this is just the tip of the iceberg, right? I think that we're going to see, especially over the next 3, 4, 5 years, just an enormous transition in deploying AI tools and models to virtually every sector of the economy. For the martial arts specifically, why this is such an important topic right now is I think that AI, the scale and scope of the implementation and the power of AI is more dramatic than anything we've ever seen. But it does remind me a little of, the internet and then Google, so to speak, right? Where schools that, I literally remember reading an article about whether, it was in the 90s, so you certainly, the time did dictate the tone and tenor of the article. But I remember reading an article in one of our trade publications in the industry about whether a martial arts school really needed a website or not. And this is before, this is while we were figuring out how powerful of a lead generation mechanism and a student service mechanism, websites were, online presence were. And so this feels a little bit like that. This feels a little bit like, this is the emergence of the new internet, but even more powerful. And some schools are going to be slow to the take up, just like they were with the internet, and they're going to get trounced, right? They're going to just get steamrolled by this thing. And then some schools are going to be on the cutting edge with us, right? Some of them are going to be out there deploying these tools to grow their school, to serve their customers better, to serve their students better, to train their staff better, to serve their communities better and more robustly. And they're going to be the winners, right? They're going to have a huge advantage over the competition. So I think that's why it's such an important topic right now. This is a thing that you don't necessarily need to be the earliest adopter of everything, right? You don't want to be deploying tools that are strategically irrelevant or strategically counterproductive, things like this. But certainly there are tools and strategies that you should be deploying right now that are going to set you ahead of the competition. And we're going to see schools, I think, who fail to make this transition, who fail to leverage these tools, just suffer more, right? If they're suffering now, they're really going to be suffering more then. So I think that's why it's probably relevant right now.
For a traditional martial arts school owner who may feel overwhelmed by technology, how would you explain AI in simple, practical terms? Yeah, traditional schools, we do. In fact, I think it's one of the strengths of our industry, to tell you the truth. We do have a lot of very traditional schools. I think that one of the strengths that schools of any type can have is
strategically deploying these traditional values and these traditional, when I say traditional values, I'm not making a political distinction or argument. I'm making an argument about what do families and parents want, right? What do they want for themselves? What do they want for their children? What kind of attitudes do they want them to have, right? What kind of character do they want them to have? And I consider those to be sort of the traditional values, right? We want, disciplined, respectful, confident children, and we want thoughtful, empathetic, strong adults, right? These are the things that I think we want as a society. And I think that the role for the martial arts to play in that arena is gigantic, and I think that will actually increase a lot over the next number of years. So when you say traditional martial arts schools, I think some of that's a very good thing, right? However, I understand the point of your question, which is if I'm sort of in that more traditional mindset and sort of resist technology, and I haven't kept myself abreast of what's going on in technology and in the world, what does AI mean to me? What does AI mean in general? Well, I mean, the overview, you can Google it for sure, but the overview on AI is these large language models are basically a tool that work a little differently than computers have in the past. And the way a computer works is I give it input, it calculates its response, and it gives me the output that I was looking for. And it can only do the things that I've expressly programmed it to do, right? So if I have Microsoft Excel and I have this cell plus this cell equals that, I know that what I'm going to get in that last column is the answer of cell 1 plus cell A plus cell B. But I have to go define that. I have to go write that formula. AI is taking out that middle step. It's taking out the step that I have to go write it, right? So I don't have to now know the syntax of Excel. I don't have to know the syntax of writing JavaScript code or PHP code or Python code or a macro for Excel or something like that. I can just ask, ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude or whatever the case might be in plain English, my question. And instead of it, sort of teaching me the syntax or how to write the formula that I need or how to write the thing that I need, it just kind of does it for me, right? It kind of gives me the answer, right? So I think the first fundamental change, the first fundamental shift that school operators who might not be as in the loop should think of how they should think about this is if I had a question for Google in the past, Google would give me a bunch of pages which I could go research. I could go click the links, read the articles, digest the information, process it, and then sort of come to my own conclusion, come to an answer. Well, now these AI models, these large language models, are just giving me the answer. They're eliminating the Google search results problem, right? They're eliminating the I have to go figure it out problem, and instead it's just answering my question. It's just giving me the thing that I was looking for. So I think if I'm a more traditional school, maybe I'm not as technologically apt or educated or informed, that would be how I would think about it. It basically cuts out the middle step of having to do the thing, and it just gives you the answer you're looking for. Now we're seeing these AI models learning, so to speak, different modalities almost every day. And by modalities, I mean, in the early days of ChatGPT, I would give it a text input, I would ask it a question in plain English typed text language, and it would type back to me, right? The response I would get would be, again, English language typed out. Characters on the screen, right? But now almost every day it seems like, we're adding modalities. Now I can type in an English, prompt, and I can get an image back. I can get an entire video back, right? That does the thing I asked it to do, that shows me the images I wanted to see. I can get sound back. I can get voice back. I can get, right? So now we've got these input-output modalities that are quite vast now. I can prompt it by voice and it will respond to me by voice. I can prompt it by an image, it will respond to me in an image or by voice or by text, whatever I want. So that's sort of how the input-output works on these things, right? They're adding modalities all the time. And now what we're seeing is even more thoughtfulness, I guess, if you want to call it that, where I give it a prompt. And instead of immediately coming back with an answer, it's now sort of checking itself, right? It's trying to eliminate what they call hallucinations or sort of bad output, right? Inaccurate, fabricated output, and it'll check itself against what it was thinking a minute ago. And now, even more recently, as of just some days ago, in fact, you can now put, Gemini or ChatGPT 5.2 now on a task. Let's say an internet type task. I want to go look at a couple of websites and research some things and bring back some answers to that. Or I want to write some code to be able to do a specific thing. You can now put this thing on a task, and it will work on these tasks now for many, many minutes and even many hours, right? Just this morning, I did an integration with an image library, an open source image library, and it literally took me 2.5 minutes, right? And now on my application, I can type in a search query, something I'm looking for, and it will bring me back hundreds of images about that thing from different sources out on the internet, different image repositories. And it literally took me 4 minutes or something like that to write the entire application. So, and it thought about it, and it wrote, I think, probably 11 different files worth of code, right? So it can now work on these tasks for longer and longer and longer. So if I'm in an office environment and I want to build a PowerPoint presentation, I can ask my AI assistant to build me a 12-slide PowerPoint presentation, and here's the topic I want it on, go. And the output is now a 12-slide PowerPoint presentation. So that's kind of what AI is, right? It's now sort of giving us the answer that we were looking for, right? And I think it's really important for martial arts school operators to be informed, right? To be watching what's happening here and understand kind of the power of this stuff.
Some school owners worry that AI could make their schools feel less impersonal or corporate. How do you respond to that concern?
Yeah, it's actually, the tone of AI is definitely of large concern, right? Should be of large concern to school owners. Unfortunately, it's getting better, and probably in the next few months it will be even better. But there's sort of an old computer science, computer analogy or aphorism, I guess. Garbage in, garbage out, right? And if you ask an improper question or an improper query, then you're not going to get the right answer out the other end. And the similar is true with the content, both voice and text and video from AI models right now. It has to make a lot of assumptions sometimes. And if you give it a prompt that isn't very verbose or descriptive, it will sort of give you sometimes what I refer to, and I think a lot of people are referring to this now, as just AI slop. Right? You get lots of words, but that don't really mean much when you put them together, right? Very vague, ethereal sentences that are written in a given cadence that don't sound human when you read them, right? Phraseology that's unnatural, right? So the fear of sounding impersonal is a very legitimate fear. It's a very legitimate concern, and it's something we really need to be on the lookout for. That's one of the things that I see being very challenging for school operators is some folks are adopting tools that really frustrate a student or a client or a customer or a prospect, right? Because the voice agent that they're getting is not very well trained, and therefore the information it gives back to the person on the phone is very vague or almost sounds deceptive. Oftentimes you're generating a document or words on a page. Maybe it's copy for an ad or copy for a sales letter or content for a video sales presentation or a video sales letter or something like that. And what you get back is very generic and milquetoast and non-emotionally engaging and non-persuasive, right? So that is definitely something to be very concerned about. Now, there are ways to defeat that. There are ways to improve the results by a lot, right? By clever prompting and also by clever training. One of the things that we do here at Atlas Martial Arts Software, one of the things that we do in this building is we have custom MCP servers, which, forget the technical part, but we add a bunch of training to the model, right? When you ask it a question, before it responds to you, before it goes to find the answer, it checks our data repository, let's say, our training on how do I talk to the prospect of a martial arts classes? How do I talk to the parent of a student in the martial arts classes? How do I respond to a question about the benefits of martial arts specifically? Things like this. So without that extra training and that extra context, often what you get back is AI slop, right? And we really want to avoid that. Fracturing the relationship with somebody can happen in an instant. And if the AI is out there now creating these pieces of content, creating these interactions with your students, with your prospects, you really want to make sure, right, that the interaction is positive and that you can monitor it and you can train against it, right? So that is definitely an area of concern, and it's definitely a right to be concerned about. Right now, it's a lot of manual review, right? But you really got to make sure that it's speaking to your people, it's speaking to your prospects, it's content on your website, it's sales letters, it's reports, whatever the case is, that it's not just AI slop thrown onto a page and it looks good because it's a lot of words, right? It really has to sound human. It really has to sound genuine, right? And really have emotional content. And that's something you have to be very careful about, very thoughtful about.
Others fear that AI might eventually replace instructors or diminish the human connection that martial arts is built on. Is that a legitimate concern or a misunderstanding of what AI actually does?
Yeah, replacing instructors. I see this two ways. I see this in two blocks of time, me personally. I think you have, I guess let's call it near to midterm, and then I think you have long term, okay? Let's talk near to midterm. Let's say, 1 week to 3, 4, 5 years, right? Now this is a total guess, right? Because no one knows how quickly this is all going to happen, right? Nobody knows. Even the people doing the research in these labs don't really exactly know, right? So let's call it near to midterm. Let's say the next few years. I think personally, what's going to happen is you'll see, America has a challenge ahead of it, and we have to figure out how to manage the implementation of these AI systems in the labor pool, right? We have to figure out how to leverage the abundance that AI will create for us into economic prosperity for our citizens. I don't know how we do that yet, right? I don't know how America is. I don't know how our system is prepared for that, right? I think it's a real challenge that we're going to have to face. But I think in the near term, AI will create an enormous amount of abundance for people who are adopting it, who are implementing it in their businesses, implementing it in their jobs. People will be replaced for sure, mostly by people who are using AI, right? Are going to replace the people who are not using AI, right? And I mean in every office, in every business, in the country and in the world. So I think number one, it's incumbent upon all of us to be, eager to adopt and ready to deploy. But I think that will create a high degree of abundance in many sectors of the economy. And I think that some of that high productivity will result in people having more free time, right? I think it's very, very possible that we see, a 30-hour work week or a 20-hour work week, or we see where people have to spend less time in the office or things like this. And I also see with the richness of digital experiences that people, I think, will crave personal experiences, right? More and more and more over time. So imagine, what we're seeing already with some of these digital experiences and social media and things like this. I can tell from anecdotal personal experience, I'm sure you've probably had this experience too. We are seeing more and more and more parents who are enrolling their kids in martial arts classes because the kids are spending too much time on their screens, right? Or they're too engaged in non-personal activities. They're not outside playing with their friends. They're not in the community, meeting people, things like this. So they're putting their kids in our classes, right? We see it every week, right? In my locations, every week we have 2, 3, 4, 5 parents who are saying, yeah, we really need him to get some physical exercise. We really need to get him, off the screens and do something productive, right? So we're seeing an increase in that, and I think that's going to increase even more. I think also in the adult market, we're going to see the same thing. I think adults are going to crave more human experiences, that they might have more time to be able to pursue them, and I believe that they'll have more economic resources to pursue them as well, right? So I think in the near to midterm, I think we have a huge opportunity to have an incredible boom in the martial arts industry. If we're deploying these tools appropriately, if we're modeling our programs appropriately, if we've modernized our curriculum and modernized our systems appropriately enough, I think we're in for an incredible boom, right? Probably that eclipses the Karate Kid boom times 10, right? I think if we position ourselves appropriately, we could be the answer to getting off your phone all day long, getting away from the PC, right? This kind of thing. So anyway, I think that's in the near to midterm. I think we have an incredible opportunity here. Now, I do think, just to be transparent about it, this is just, again, my personal opinion based on what I think I'm seeing, is I think long term, like very long term, with Neuralink and totally digital experiences, where we might be able to just plug into the matrix, well, I think in that case, right, having a physical location might not be the most important thing. Having a digital location, I think, will be the most important thing at that point. But I think that's far enough off that maybe it's not worth talking about today, right? Maybe that's not the purpose. Maybe there's not much we can project right now, because that is a ways off still. But clearly today, having presence on platforms like Meta with Meta VR, right? There are many, one of our friends, Grandmaster Dan Segara, has this digital dojo, right, on Meta, right? The Set for folks have situational training applications on VR where protection agents and people can do training, virtual training inside VR. Certainly there are many martial arts schools who are pursuing that as well. We have experiences like that as well that we're working through, and I think certainly there'll be some opportunity there, right? I think that there'll be definitely opportunity where we can participate in the virtual world as well. But I think in the near to midterm, I think people are going to crave and desire live personal experiences, community building experiences, character building experiences, more and more and more over time.
In your experience, what happens to schools that resist new systems and technology altogether?
Yeah, resist altogether. I have no doubt. I'm sad to say it, but I have no doubt that there will be 15% maybe of the industry that just, completely digs their heels in and completely resists, implementing any technology, any tools, look, every day at Atlas Martial Arts Software with our teams in that area, every day we talk to schools who are still, tracking all of their finances on a handwritten ledger in a desk drawer somewhere, or manually tracking student attendances on like a checklist or something, or have no social media presence whatsoever, or have no website whatsoever, have no digital presence whatsoever. Every day we talk to school owners like that. I just think that this AI set of technologies is going to be such an accelerant to schools that deploy them, schools that embrace them, schools that leverage them. It's going to be such an accelerant for them that, the schools that just refuse, I don't see a future for them. I just don't see, I don't see a way that they're going to be able to be competitive in the marketplace. Maybe they'll have, 8 or 10 students or 20 students that they teach in their backyard, and then all the neighbors and stuff like that. I mean, that's, probably that's right. Probably they don't go away, right? Probably they don't feel much pressure because they don't have many expenses, and they don't have, really a physical location or anything like that. But I think that we're going to see, hate to say it, but we're going to see the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, right? We're going to see the more sophisticated folks who are willing to learn and deploy, they're going to skyrocket, and the guys in the bottom 10-15% are just going to have even more pressure on them, right? The guys in the middle are going to feel a little squeezed too, right? The guys in the middle are going to be squeezed as well. But I think that's what we see happen.
Where are you seeing AI already making a positive impact in martial arts schools today?
Yeah, good question. So on the really practical side of the fence, where are schools seeing leverage now? In several important ways. Again, keeping in mind the warnings, right? You can't allow this stuff to become impersonal and unpersuasive and just put words on a page just to be putting words on a page. But we're seeing lots of our clients, lots of folks in the industry who are doing really well and seeing a lot of benefits from this, using AI in several ways. One very powerful way is just in generating content, right? Generating email content, sales letters, website content, blog posts, social media posts, things like this, both text, image, and video. The necessity to have expertise in Photoshop or Dreamweaver or InDesign, or Premiere Pro, that's largely now gone away, right? Now, in order to get exactly what you want, you still have to be able to manipulate these things. You still have to be able to, make changes and things like that. But the speed at which you can generate these pieces of content is astronomical now, right? If you want to have 20 reports at your martial arts school for the 20 main benefits of martial arts, if you want 5-page reports that reinforce the benefit of martial arts, you can ask ChatGPT or Notebook LM. You can give them core content, you can give them source content, and say, hey, here's what I want, and you can have that result in mere minutes, right? Now again, you may have to do some prompt engineering and some cleaning up and things like that, and refocusing it, but you have now much more leverage, right? I think I mentioned earlier, one of our good friends, Grandmaster Dan Segarra, mentioned a few months ago, I was chatting with him, and he said, well, really, instead of feeling like a one-man band, AI now turns you into a one-man army, right? And I think that's probably right. I think for the solo school operator, or the small team, right? The school operator and maybe a program director or something like that, I think now they've just become 25 times more productive when it comes to, like I said, generating emails, generating appointment reminder messages, generating audio, generating images and video and things like this to help reinforce the benefit of martial arts, to help market their schools for social media posts, things like this, right? So I think those are very, very useful tools in the content generation arena. Second, I think we're finding a lot of interesting results with voice agents, and we've trained a voice model now. We've been training it for about a year. And it's really, really good now and getting even better every day at answering prospect questions, answering student questions, things like this. Now, here's the nuance I think that's critical. And this is the warning I would give on anybody considering voice agents or expanding any AI generated content anywhere associated with their business, is we have some unique approaches to deploying the voice agent where we're not trying to fool the person on the other end of the call. Does that make sense? Like, the worst thing in the world you want to do is lie to them, right? So now you just had someone who became a prospect in your martial arts school, and now you have a voice agent trying to pretend to be a live human being, but then they figure out it's not a live human being, right? What have you just done to the relationship, right? So we've deployed some really interesting and unique strategies to deploy voice agents in a way that the prospect and or the customer wants to get the call. They want to talk to the voice agent, right? And they know it's a voice agent, and they know what they can ask and what they can't, and they can get a bunch of answers. They can get a bunch of their questions answered in a thoughtful, meaningful way that we know is accurate, right? We know that it's actually what they're looking for, and it's not just making stuff up or Googling something on the internet somewhere, right? So again, we're finding a lot of leverage in that area. A third area that is really, really powerful, and you're going to see this more and more, I think, over time. I think we're way ahead on this, is some of our automations, right? We've now deployed AI technology to help our automation engines nurture your prospects more dynamically, more organically, right? To nurture your students. If you have a student who just became an orange belt, and we have our orange belt automation system set up, we now have tools built into that mechanism to help enrich that orange belt experience even more, right? So we're very proud of that. So I think those three areas are areas where schools are finding a lot of value. And I think that we're going to see even more value expand over time as the tools get better and as the training gets better, and more users are deploying these tools. I think we're going to see even more benefits for schools.
What type of AI tools or systems tend to give school owners the biggest aha moments once they start using them?
Big aha moments. Yeah, you know, I mean, I got to tell you, it does feel a little bit magical. I'm not going to lie, right? When you prompt, ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude or Perplexity or Llama, right? When you give it a query and it responds to you in a way that feels live, that feels real, it is a little bit of a magical experience. For me, there were a couple of aha moments when ChatGPT first sort of hit the scene, so to speak, and I realized, on like the second or third query, I'm like, wait a minute, this is a fundamentally different way to do business. This is fundamentally different than asking Google something, and then I have to now go read 9 articles on 5 different websites to encapsulate and internalize that information, right? And then be able to make a decision. Now I just get the answer I'm looking for, right? Instead of links, I get an answer. That's pretty magical. I think that's an aha moment for sure. I think also Gemini's Nano Banana image generation model, up until Nano Banana, and it still even struggles occasionally, don't get me wrong. But up until that, generating images with AI was very, it was very challenging. You'd often get, a karate practitioner with 4 arms or something like that, or, AI slop, basically, right? AI is just guessing. It's just trying to figure out what it's trying to do. But since Nano Banana, generating images is really a magical experience. It really is. It's getting text right most of the time now. It's getting the cinematic nature of the scene that you're trying to create pretty right most of the time. You used to have to use additional tools in order to get great output, like Midjourney or something like that, right? You'd have to use tools that had more context to formulate the images. But now, just straight in Google AI Studio or whatever, you can get really wonderful output. So I think that's a little bit magical. And I think video has little ways to go, but there's some really magical experiences happening with video too. There's some, when you look at Reels or Llama's, Meta's Vibes, I think they call it. Some of these videos are really, funny and entertaining. I'm very worried about video because I think before long you're not going to be able to tell what's real from what's AI fabricated. But creating videos is something magical too. So I think all those things are going to be aha moments for school operators. I don't think, and I ask every day. Every day I run through queries and I test different models against each other, and I even have a new mechanism now where I actually have one model ask another model that asks another model that asks another model to get content, and it's not a very good business operator just yet, right? It doesn't quite understand the nuances of operating a martial arts school. It doesn't quite understand the nuances of highly persuasive copywriting and things like that. It needs extra context, right? So that's not quite magical yet, but as a brainstorming assistant, I guess that'll be number 4, as a brainstorming partner, it really is quite magical, right? If you're saying, help me brainstorm this topic, and it'll help stimulate thoughts that you might not have ever had in your own thinking, right? And then you can reprompt it and re-ask it and ask it differently and change the tone and things like this. That's quite a magical experience too, I think. You really can come up with some really creative, clever ideas and concepts that probably wouldn't have come to you otherwise. So I think that's a pretty magical experience too.
How should school owners think about using AI tools that seem disconnected and scattered?
Yeah, it's a good question. The duct tape and baling wire problem is a real problem. Having lots of separate systems trying to communicate with each other is just challenging in and of itself. And AI is just adding another layer to this. AI now can use tools. It can do tool calls. where it can call, for example, Canva and give it a project to do, or it can call, Microsoft Copilot is integrated right into your Office suite. So, it can do different elements using different applications, different tasks using different applications. And it is very difficult right now to sort of glue all that together. One of the things that we're doing in Atlas Martial Arts Software is providing the platform, the underlying platform with all your school's information, right? So that you can deploy smart tools that aren't just wasting time, right? But tools that are actually helping you with your workflow, right? That are helping you generate the lead follow-up email that you need to generate right now, or generate the marketing image that you're looking for right now, or whatever the case might be. So we're deeply invested in that, and we think that that's a way to help sort of consolidate, right, and sort of get all these tools to work together in the right context. And again, as I've described earlier, we're creating our own MCP servers that give it the martial arts business context that it really needs, to be able to be much more productive than just the generic models right off the shelf, right? So we're very proud of that. We're very excited about that, and it's evolving very, very quickly.
For owners who want to better systemize their business, how can AI fit into that strategy?
Systems over hustle, yeah. Well, yeah, not to diminish the value of hustle for sure, right? But remember, one of my fundamental focuses has always been on how do I build businesses that are stable and sustainable, right? That will live beyond me, right? That will live beyond my own personal, activity and action inside the four walls of the business. And systemization is really something that helps other people be successful, right? If you can systematize everything in the school, then now you're setting up your program directors and your school managers, and when you expand to multiple locations, you're setting them up for success, not for failure. If they require you personally to do all the things, right, then there's no way to scale, right? Let's not say no way to scale, but there's no survivorship, right? If you're not there to do all that stuff, what happens, right? I've got one personal anecdote is in my office here at AMS headquarters. I have a desk drawer in the desk behind me, and it's called my "If I Get Hit by a Bus" drawer. And in that drawer are all of the most important things that someone else would need, if I get hit by a bus, to make sure that everything is fine, make sure that everything goes on well. And my mission is to make that file smaller and smaller and smaller every day, right? To systematize these things more and more and more every day, so that my personal interaction isn't what's required, right? And I've got very few things in there now, and I want less things in there over time. So I think the idea that systemizing your school is probably the most critical and important thing that you can do, that you need to be pursuing every day of every week of every month. And this, I think, is a big piece of leverage to help you do that, right? AI is going to be a wonderful assistant for you. It'll be a wonderful assistant for your staff, for your team, but you really have to build the mechanisms, build the systems to help them deploy those things appropriately.
From a leadership standpoint, what separates school owners who successfully adopt AI from those who struggle with it?
From a leadership standpoint, well, yeah, that's actually a pretty good question. I have a lot of interesting experiences that this resonates for me. For many years I ran very high-level coaching groups in the martial arts industry, and we had many tiers of these groups. And one tier were the hyper performers, right? So the $1 million a year school plus, right? The multi-location, real go-getters, right? And then another tier and another tier and another tier, as results kind of aren't as strong, right? So another tier if they're over 700,000 but not at $1 million yet. Another tier, this kind of thing, right? And it was very fascinating when we would do mastermind meetings where we'd have 30, 40 school operators in a room, and we're sharing ideas, right? We're sharing sort of what's working in Kentucky, what's working in Seattle, what's working in LA, what's working in Orlando, what's working in Atlanta, what's working in Dodge City, Kansas, right? Whatever. And in the high level group, the couple of highest level groups, almost universally, when a new concept came up, right? Or when someone shared a marketing campaign that they'd gotten great results with, and they brought the receipts, they brought the proof of the result, right? They said, we did this many of this, it cost us this much money, it generated this many leads, it converted this many students, those students are worth this amount of money over a year, this is the ROI, right? That was the type of data we forced them to contribute. Almost universally in those higher level groups, when a concept like that came up, or when someone had results like that, I would look around the room and almost universally I would see this, right? People smiling, people thinking, how can I implement this in my school? How can I use this strategy in my community? How can I leverage this idea with my local school districts? How can I leverage this idea with my local business partners? How do I leverage this idea with my local, right? These types of things. Almost universally around the room. It was one of my favorite things to do on the planet ever. Almost universally around the room, I see this positive, smiling, head nodding, right? Let's go, right? People taking furious notes and copious descriptions of what's happening and things like this, right? And if I were to look at those tiers of groups and go down to the lower couple of tiers of groups, right? The folks that are, let's say, maybe maybe grossing less than $40,000 a month or $30,000 a month. Maybe they're grossing $10,000 a month or 12 or 14 or 18 or whatever. I look at those bottom couple of tiers of groups. Same environment, same exact environment, right? Same structure. And someone would do the same exact thing, right? They would show you their marketing, just using marketing as an example. They would show you a campaign that worked well, or a teaching tactic that worked well, or something that got parents talking about their program in the community, or whatever the case might be. And they would describe it to everybody. The response around the room that I saw was very, very different. I would see right? The responses we get are, well, that will never work in my area because ... That'll never work in our area because our elementary schools don't allow any businesses to do anything there. That'll never work in my demographic because nobody uses credit cards in my area. That'll never work in my demographic or my area because whatever kind of BS reason you can imagine, I've heard it, right? I've heard all of them, right? And in every single case, we've been able to prove them wrong. We've been able to prove that that's not a limitation, right? But my point is, the differentiator between the leadership style and culture and belief system and attitude, I think, that you have to have in this and any other arena, frankly, is, I guess, Ted Lasso would say, be curious, not judgmental, right? Be curious. How could I deploy this? How would this work? Not, this will never work, right? Maybe you're right. Maybe there is some limitation, some fundamental limitation that can't be overcome. But I haven't found many of them yet, right? I've found very few fundamental limitations. Every time that we've been told that you can't do that here because elementary schools won't allow you, we've been able to get it done. Every time we've gone into a demographic and an operator believes that you can't charge X in this demographic, we've been able to do it successfully, right? Every time, right? So my point being that the leadership strategy that you should be thinking about, that you should be deploying, is that of curiosity and of dissecting, how can I benefit from this? How can I deploy this in a thoughtful way, right? Not simply furrowing your brow and believing that this will never work, right? But how can I, right? What tactics can I use? That type of thing, right? So I think that'll be the big differentiator, and that's the big leadership difference, I believe.
Do you see AI as something that levels the playing field for smaller schools, or as something that widens the gap between well-run schools and struggling ones?
Levels the playing field. Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, I think it is. I think that, like I said earlier, the big differentiator I think that will happen with this AI revolution, and I mean it's a revolution, there's no question, is the doers and the not, right? So if I'm a smaller school right now, if I'm a one-man band, if I'm a one-man show, if I'm really struggling to make all this stuff work, I think if I'm first, if I get there quickly, if I start testing and deploying these tools, if I start automating my systems, if I start systemizing my school, if I start doing that now, I think you will be able to join the innovators, right? You'll be able to join the top 20, 30, 40% of the industry. But I do think that we will see a divide, right? We will see even more of a divide than we typically have, where the implementers are really gonna hockey stick curve and up and to the right, and the ones who don't implement, I think you're going to have even more pressure. Right? I think you're really going to be squeezed, and I don't like the chances. I hate it because I don't want anybody to go out of business. I don't want anybody who's teaching good lessons, anyone who's caring for their students, caring for their community. I don't want anybody to feel that kind of pressure, but it's coming. It's around the corner, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. Right? The US isn't going to stop it, China's not going to stop it, Russia's not going to stop it. This is not stopping. So we either benefit or we detriment from it, right? We either benefit or we get sort of stomped by it. So I think that's where we are right now. But I do think it is a lever for smaller schools, for less systematic schools, to deploy these things now.
Looking ahead 3 to 5 years, how do you believe AI will reshape the way martial arts schools operate on a day-to-day basis? Yeah, 3 to 5 years. I mean, again, who knows how fast this is all going to go. But I think in the very short term, let's say even 1 to 3 years, I think schools are going to be, you really need to be deeply thoughtful about what we're building, what we have available, and what we're working with in our Atlas Martial Arts software platform and tools like that, is immediately when a prospect happens, they immediately get AI powered and enabled communication, text message, email, voice call, things like this, right? Personally generated email, personally generated video that's personalized for them and exactly what they're looking for, things like this. Automated campaign follow-up. Also some automated lead generation activity. So when it comes to structuring Facebook ad campaigns or any kind of social media ad campaign or any type of digital ad campaign, all of these tools are now deployed there as well. I think you'll see, and we see already, and we're deploying in schools already, chatbot interfaces, AI-powered interfaces for prospect websites, AI-powered interfaces for customer service, student service questions and things like that have access to your knowledge base and can answer questions appropriately that you want to have answered. Like I said, voice agents that talk to all of your customers, talk to all of your students and inform them about the upcoming events and inform them about the benefits of what they're doing in classes. Customized and personalized video content for each student based on how they performed in class, based on what the parents are looking for, things like this. I think all of these are going to be deeply integrated into the day-to-day life of school operators. I think students are going to have a far superior service, even so much as having, in our mobile application, one of the innovations that we're very deeply invested in and working on is the ability for a student to, perform in front of the phone and have that analyzed by an AI assistant that can help you be a better instructor, right? That can help them learn faster, things like this. So lots of tools like that I think will be embedded in the day-to-day life of school operators all over the world. You've seen major shifts in martial arts business landscape over the years. How does this rise of AI compared to previous changes the industry has faced?
Yeah, kind of like I described earlier, I think this is, the internet, another internet moment, but I think the scale and scope is so much bigger, right? This is going to disrupt, again, every segment of the economy, every industry, right? We're no exception for sure. I do think in this initial period of time here, and that could be quite a period of time, we're going to have enormous benefits. I think people are really going to seek out what we do, and I think it's going to be a great boom for us.
If you could leave martial arts school owners with one piece of advice about AI and the future of the industry, what would it be?
Final advice. Well, I would say, number one, I think it's very clear that this is going to be, again, the largest disruption that probably the world has ever seen. I think this is going to be a bigger disruption than, the nuclear bomb. A bigger disruption than the internet. This is going to provide more opportunity, generate more wealth, generate more, let's just call it opportunity, than I think anything else ever has. Maybe even more than the advent of capitalism in general, right? This could be bigger than that, right? But I think that, and it will definitely separate the implementers from the not. So I definitely think you want to be in that category, not the other, right? You want to be in the implementer category, not the not category. And I think that the beneficiary are going to be our students and their families and our communities. If we can execute this well, I think our students get better lessons, more rich experiences, more personalization, more customization, more benefit, more value from their tuition. And what we do for the student and the family, I think will dramatically increase in its perception of value over the next few years, because people are going to need it more and more, right? People are going to need these social experiences, these character experiences, these enrichment experiences. They're going to crave them and desire them more and more. And I think the perception of value in the marketplace will go up dramatically. So I think that's very good news. There's a lot of optimism there. I do think that you have to be thoughtful and careful. Remember that fundamental human psychology and fundamental human behavior doesn't change very much. Just because you're deploying an AI tool to do something, for example, a voice agent, it doesn't mean that just because you're using AI to do something, that it's a good thing, right? If you, again, are trying to fool somebody, that's probably not a great idea, right? If you're trying to deceive someone, probably not a great idea. If you're serving McDonald's hamburgers and trying to convince people that it's, a Ruth's Chris filet mignon, this is a problem, right? This is a fundamental problem. And AI will just help you be better at that problem, right? So we always have to keep in mind fundamental human behavior, fundamental human psychology, fundamental human performance. But if we put it in that frame, AI is going to be a huge lever for those who implement, right? So I'm very optimistic. I'm very excited about it. We are very deeply invested and very deeply active in building these tools into our systems to help our clients and help our customers, help our school operators, and help our communities. And I think it's going to be an enormous boom for those who are really focused on implementing well.